Abused dog was about to give up, but when this woman found him, incredible what happened next. The scorching sunlight of the summer stretched over the town of Woodhaven, Georgia, making everything suffocating. Even the air seemed to want to choke the soul. In the small office of the Animal Rescue Center Haven's Light, Kate Summers received a call she would never forget. "Ms. Summers, we've just received a report." The voice of the police officer on the other end was tense. "There's a dog trapped on Lester Crane's property. It's in very bad condition." Kate gripped the phone tightly, anger rising in her chest. Lester Crane, the name that had become a nightmare for animal lovers in the area. "I'll be there right away," she replied, despite the fear that crept in at the thought of having to face him. When Kate arrived, the first image that struck her made her choke up. Under a withered tree, a thin figure lay motionless. Not a figure, but a living being. A Great Pyrenees dog, once with pure white fur, now covered in mud and dried blood. The rusty chain was tightly wrapped around its neck, to the point where it seemed to be digging into the flesh. "What are you doing here?" Lester came out of the wooden house, his voice rough and challenging. "This is my land. That dog is my property. What have you done to it?" Kate yelled, struggling to hold back tears. Lester shrugged. "Nothing. It's just a dog. You want it? $1,000. Kate clenched her fists. She looked at the dog, its eyes empty, but somewhere in the devastation, a faint glimmer of hope flickered. "I will save you, no matter what," she whispered to herself, her eyes burning with determination. The wheels rolled on the gravel road leading to the rescue center, and Kate felt as though someone was choking her heart. In the back of the car, the dog, which she had already started calling Casper, lay motionless on the old blanket. He didn't move. Only his faint, fragile breath signaled that he was still alive. Kate occasionally glanced at the rearview mirror, her fear growing steadily. "Hang in there, Casper. We're almost there. Just a little longer," she whispered, knowing he couldn't reply. When they arrived at the center, the veterinary team was ready. Dr. Elena Rhodes, Kate's longtime friend, immediately began assessing Casper's condition. The stench from his festering wounds made everyone in the room grimace, but their eyes never left the small life struggling between life and death. "He's severely dehydrated, has a systemic infection, and may have internal injuries. We need to treat him immediately," Elena said, her voice urgent but professional. Kate held Casper's paw tightly as the nurses carefully placed him on the examination table. "He'll be okay, right?" she asked, her voice trembling. Elena didn't answer immediately. She was examining the deep wound caused by the chain around Casper's neck, where the flesh was torn open, red and infected. "I can't promise anything, Kate, but he still has a breath, and we will do everything we can." Casper let out a faint whimper as a nurse tried to clean the dirt off his fur. It was a weak sound, but it made Kate's heart ache. In that moment, she realized that despite all the damage, Casper was still fighting. He hadn't given up. "Casper, I know you don't trust us right now, but I promise, we're here to help you," Kate whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "We won't abandon you." For hours, the clinic turned into a battlefield. Casper was given 4 fluids, painkillers, and his wounds were cleaned. Elena and her team worked tirelessly, sometimes having to stop to wipe the sweat rolling down their brows. "Strange," a nurse named Mia said as she injected antibiotics into Casper. "He doesn't resist. Even though he's obviously in pain, he just lies there." "That's the most heartbreaking thing," Elena replied. "He's suffered so much that he's become used to the pain." Kate sat in the corner of the room, her hands tightly clasped. In her mind, images of Casper under the tree replayed, his eyes empty but deep down. There was a cry for help. How can people be so cruel, she wondered. He's just a small creature, needing just a little love. As night fell, Casper was moved to a private room, where he would be monitored throughout the night. Kate refused to leave, despite Elena's advice. "Kate, you need to rest. We will take care of Casper," Elena said, her voice gentle but firm. "No, I can't leave him alone. He's been abandoned enough already," Kate replied, her eyes filled with determination. She pulled a chair beside Casper's bed, gently placed her hand on his head. His fur was rough and dirty, but she could feel his breathing becoming steadier. Kate took a book from her bag, a habit of hers when caring for injured animals, and began reading. You know, Casper, I've met so many dogs in my life, but you're special. Not just because of what you've been through, but because you've managed to hold on to a little hope. You've taught me that even when life is at its worst, there's always a reason not to give up. She kept reading until Casper's eyes slowly closed, and in a touching moment, his tail, though weak, flicked gently. Just one soft wag, but it was enough to ignite a powerful belief in Kate's heart. You're not just surviving, she whispered, her eyes full of tears. You're fighting, and I will fight with you, Casper. The next morning, the first light of day filtered through the window of the rescue center, but the atmosphere in the ICU room remained heavy. Kate opened her eyes after a long night spent beside Casper. He was still lying there, but his breathing was more steady. On the table next to the bed, the book Kate had been reading the night before was still open, marking the place where she had stopped because she couldn't hold back her emotions. Good morning, little warrior, she whispered, her voice trembling. Casper gently lifted his head, his gaze weak but starting to show a hint of life. Kate smiled, her heart filled with new hope. But the peaceful moment didn't last long. The office door swung open with loud footsteps. Kate turned around, and her heart seemed to stop when she saw Lester Crane storming in, accompanied by a lawyer. Ms. Summers, Lester said triumphantly, I'm here to take my dog back. Kate straightened, her body tense. You have no right to do that, Lester, she said firmly. Casper is not your property. He's a living being, and I won't let you harm him again. The lawyer handed her a stack of documents. According to the law, he said coldly, this dog still belongs to Mr. Crane, unless you can prove it has been severely abused. Prove. Kate frowned, anger rising within her. His neck was chained until it became infected, his body covered in wounds, and you still want more proof? This is living evidence. It doesn't matter, Lester interrupted, smirking. You know, the law doesn't care about your feelings. If you don't return the dog, I'll sue your center. And then, I guarantee you'll never have a penny to save another dog again. Kate clenched her fists, struggling to control her emotions. She looked at Lester, then at Casper, the dog who was staring at them both with fearful eyes. In that moment, she understood that to protect Casper, she couldn't rely on emotions alone. She needed a plan. You want to sue me? Go ahead, Kate said, her gaze full of determination. But let me make it clear, I will fight to the end. And I won't just fight for Casper, but for all the dogs you've hurt. Lester smirked, but when he looked into Kate's steadfast eyes, his smile faltered for a moment. He turned and walked away, but not without leaving a final threat. You will regret this, Summers. After Lester left, the air in the room seemed to drain away. Kate sat down, her hands trembling. Elena walked in and placed a hand on her shoulder. Are you okay? No, Kate admitted, her voice growing quieter. But I won't give up, not just for Casper, but for all the beings waiting for our help. Elena nodded, her eyes soft yet resolute. You're not alone in this fight, Kate. We'll fight together. That afternoon, Kate decided to take action. She began taking pictures of Casper's wounds, documenting his care since he had been rescued. She contacted a larger animal rights organization, sharing Casper's story and calling for legal support. An open letter was posted on the center's social media, accompanied by heartbreaking photos of Casper when he was first rescued. Within hours, the post spread rapidly. Words of encouragement, support, and outrage at Lester flooded the comments. Many people began sending letters of support, making donations, and even some pro bono lawyers contacted Kate to offer help. But the most remarkable thing happened that evening. When Kate returned to the ICU, Casper lifted his head to look at her. His gaze was no longer completely empty, but contained something new: trust. Do you see that, Casper? People are standing by us. We won't let anyone hurt you anymore, she whispered, gently stroking his head. Casper softly closed his eyes, and for the first time, he slept deeply and peacefully. In Kate's heart, her belief in this fight was further strengthened. She wasn't just protecting a dog. She was protecting the meaning of life and compassion in this world. The new day began in an atmosphere filled with tension but also a flicker of hope at the rescue center. After the post about Casper went viral, support from the community flooded in continuously. Encouraging messages, small but sincere donations, and stories about other animal rescues were shared, all making Kate feel that she was not alone. However, Casper remained the focal point of all the concerns. Though he had started to physically recover, he was still frightened whenever there was a loud noise or when someone unfamiliar entered the room. The painful memories caused by Lester seemed to be deeply imprinted in his mind. That morning, when Kate entered the room, she saw Casper curled up in the corner of the bed. He was staring out of the window with a distant look in his eyes. Kate sat down beside him and gently said, "Good morning, Casper. Today, let's try something new, shall we?" Casper did not respond, but Kate continued speaking in a soft tone. "I know you've been through a lot of bad things, but I believe there's still strength in you to move forward. We'll take it one small step at a time, okay?" Elena entered, holding a new soft fabric leash. "Kate, are you planning to take Casper outside today?" Kate nodded. "Yes. He needs to know that the world isn't all suffering. I want him to feel the sunshine and the breeze, things that have been taken away from him for too long." Elena hesitated. "Are you sure? If he's scared, it could make him withdraw even more." "I'm sure," Kate said, her eyes full of determination. "He deserves this chance." As Kate gently put the leash on Casper's collar, he flinched slightly, his ears drooping. "It's okay, Casper. This isn't Lester's leash. This is our bridge," she whispered, her voice as soft as a promise. The first step outside was a challenge. Casper walked slowly, his eyes constantly darting around, flinching at every small noise. But then a gentle breeze blew, carrying the scent of lavender from the garden behind the center. Casper stopped, took a deep breath, and for the first time, he raised his head, letting the sunlight warm his rough fur. "Good job, Casper. See? The world out here isn't as scary as you think," Kate said, her voice choking with emotion as she saw the small but significant change in him. However, the real challenge came when a volunteer passed by with a metal bin, accidentally creating a loud noise. Casper immediately flattened his ears, shrank back, and whimpered in fear. Kate knelt down and placed her hand on his head. "It's okay, Casper. I'm here. No one can hurt you anymore." Casper slowly lifted his head, his eyes filled with hesitation. But when he saw the patience and love in Kate's gaze, he decided to trust her. Gradually, he stood up and took a few more steps, each one feeling like a small victory. In the afternoon, Kate decided to take Casper to a special place, the center's therapy garden, where seriously ill children often came to play. It was a bold decision, but she believed this was the way for Casper to start rebuilding his trust in people. When they arrived, the children curiously looked at the large dog with the rough fur and sad eyes. A boy named Ben, around 8 years old, approached but stopped when he saw Casper shyly retreat. "Is he scared, Miss Kate?" Ben asked in a soft voice. "Yes, Ben. He's been through a lot of pain, so now he needs time to understand that not everyone will hurt him," Kate explained. Ben sat down, keeping a safe distance from Casper. "It's okay, Casper. I'm scared of a lot of things too, but I think if we try together, we'll be okay." As if understanding the boy's words, Casper slowly walked over and sat down next to Ben. He lowered his head, allowing Ben to gently place his hand on his rough fur. "See?" Kate whispered, a smile curling at the corners of her mouth. "You're not just healing, Casper. You're helping others find their trust again." That night, when Casper returned to his bed, he didn't curl up in fear as he usually did. Instead, he lay flat, looking up at Kate, his tail gently wagging. It wasn't a complete recovery, but it was a start, a fragile but precious hope, like the first light breaking through the darkness. The following days, life at the rescue center seemed peaceful, but Kate never truly felt safe. The silence after Lester's threats was like the sky before a storm, bleak and full of uncertainty. She knew Lester wasn't the type to give up easily, but she couldn't have imagined he would go so far to sabotage all her and the team's efforts. One morning, Kate had just entered her office when Elena hurried in, her face pale. "Kate, something's happened," Elena gasped, holding out a letter. Kate took it and read, her feeling of worry turning into boiling anger. The letter was a notice from an animal protection organization that had been funding the center, stating they were suspending all support. The reason? Suspicions of financial mismanagement. That's impossible. We've always been transparent with every expense. Kate shouted, frustration rising. Lester is definitely behind this, Elena said, her voice serious. He's trying to strangle our center from the inside out. Kate bit her lip, her hands shaking as she read the letter again. She felt as though the whole world was against her. We can't let him win. But how can we prove our innocence against these accusations? That afternoon, Kate decided to hold a meeting with all staff and volunteers. We're being attacked, she said, her voice low but firm. Lester Crane doesn't just want Casper. He wants to destroy everything we've built. But I can't do this alone. I need everyone's help. Marcus, a young volunteer, stood up. I think we should make all the center's finances public on our website. Let's show everyone that we have nothing to hide. Mia, a nurse, added, and we should keep telling Casper's story. People need to know the truth about what Lester has done. Kate nodded, relieved to see the support from the team. I know it won't be easy, but if we do this together, we can overcome it. That evening, when Kate returned to the special care room, Casper was lying on the bed, gazing out the window with a sad look. Kate sat beside him, gently stroking his fur, which was becoming softer. Casper, today has been a long day, she said softly, as if confiding in a friend. But you know what? You taught me that even when everything seems at its worst, we can still find a reason to keep going. Casper tilted his head, his eyes seeming to ask, "So what's your reason?" Kate smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You. My reason is you, Casper. Because you didn't give up, I won't give up either." As if understanding her words, Casper slowly moved closer, resting his head on Kate's hand. It was a small comfort, but it was enough to give Kate the strength to keep fighting. But things didn't get easier. The next day, when Marcus checked the therapy garden, he noticed strange footprints around the fence. It seemed someone had tried to break in. Kate immediately increased security and installed cameras, but the sense of unease still lingered. "Lester's trying to make us afraid," Elena said as she and Kate reviewed the camera footage. "But he doesn't know we're not easily defeated." "No, he doesn't," Kate replied, her voice firm. "We're not just fighting for Casper. We're fighting for all the vulnerable lives that need a safe place." In the following days, the center faced new challenges, from false rumors to cuts in funding. But Casper's story continued to spread. Pictures of him, from the day he was rescued to when he started recovering, became symbols of hope. Every post Kate shared received thousands of encouraging messages from all over the world. One evening, as Kate was preparing the next post, she received a message from an anonymous account. "Stop now, or you'll regret it." Kate felt her heart stop for a moment, but then she looked over at Casper, the dog curled up peacefully on the small bed. The light in the room reflected off his fur, which was growing softer, like a symbol of rebirth. "No," she told herself. "I won't stop. Never." Casper had fought to survive, and now Kate would fight to protect him at any cost. The storm wasn't over, but Kate believed that with love and unity, they would find the light at the end of the road. The sky was overcast when Kate stepped out of the office. Dark clouds swirled in the sky, signaling an approaching storm, much like the heavy feeling that enveloped the rescue center. Anonymous threats and relentless challenges made it impossible for Kate not to worry. But amid all of this, Casper was the greatest source of motivation. That morning, Kate decided to take Casper outside to try something new. Recently, Casper had started to trust humans more, but he was still afraid of loud noises and the presence of unfamiliar men. Kate wanted to help him overcome these fears, not just to recover, but to become a living symbol for all creatures that had suffered. "Casper, today we're going a little further, okay?" Kate said as she bent down, gently putting the leash on him. Casper blinked slightly, as if considering the suggestion. Finally, he stood up, his white fur now smoother, though a few scars still reminded him of the painful past. Elena walked in, looking at Kate with concern. "Are you sure? It's going to rain soon, and Casper isn't fully stable yet." Yes, but he needs to learn to face his fears, Kate replied, her gaze firm. He's been through enough, Elena. It's time for him to understand that he doesn't need to be afraid anymore. Kate led Casper to the therapy garden, where a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of lavender and chrysanthemums. Casper walked slowly, his eyes alert, scanning his surroundings. Every step he took was a small victory, but it was worth it. Then, from a distance, the sound of a large truck rolling on the gravel road reached them. The sudden noise startled Casper. He crouched low, his body shaking violently. Kate quickly sat beside him and placed her hand on his head. "It's okay, Casper. I'm here," she said, her voice soft but reassuring. "You're safe. No one can hurt you anymore." Casper slowly lifted his head, his eyes meeting Kate's. In those eyes, Kate didn't just see fear but also a tiny spark, trust. Gradually, he stood up and slowly continued walking. "You did it, Casper." Kate smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Little by little, you're overcoming your pain." But the experiment wasn't over. As Kate and Casper neared the end of the garden, the iron gate suddenly swung open, and Marcus rushed in, his face full of worry. "Kate, Lester has filed an official lawsuit. He's demanding ownership of Casper, and he has a good lawyer behind him." Kate felt her heart tighten. The storm outside began to rain, and the storm inside her grew fierce. But she didn't have time to panic. "Are you sure, Marcus?" Marcus nodded. "They've sent the official notice. You need to prepare for court." Kate looked down at Casper, the dog now nuzzling her, as if sensing the tension. In that moment, she understood that this wasn't just a legal battle. This was a fight to protect the meaning of life, of compassion, and of justice. "All right," Kate said, her voice steady. "We won't back down. You may have a lawyer, but we have the truth, and the truth will prevail." That night, Kate, Elena, and Marcus worked tirelessly to prepare the legal documents. They gathered all the evidence, from pictures of Casper on the first day he was rescued to health checkup papers from the veterinarian. But what moved Kate the most was a video clip recorded by Mia, a young nurse. In the clip, Casper was gently resting his head on the hand of an autistic boy in the therapy garden. The boy smiled brightly, the first time after many gloomy days. "This isn't a soulless animal. This is a living being who knows love, who knows how to heal," Kate whispered, her eyes welling with tears. As the storm outside subsided, Kate entered the ICU. Casper was lying on the small bed, but when he saw her, he lifted his head, his eyes shining. Kate knelt down and gently hugged him. "You know, Casper, we may have to face a big battle, but you've taught me that no matter how difficult it is, we can't give up," she said, her voice trembling. "We will win, not for me, but for you and for all the living beings out there who need a second chance." Casper wagged his tail gently, as if to say he trusted her. And in that moment, Kate felt stronger than ever. No matter how fierce the storm, she knew they would overcome it together. The day of the trial finally arrived. Kate walked into the courtroom with the mindset of a warrior. Her simple suit did not diminish her strong presence. Inside, anxiety still weighed heavily on her heart. But whenever she looked at Casper, the dog sitting beside her with a trusting gaze, she felt empowered. He had fought to survive, and now it was her turn to fight to protect him. On the other side, Lester Crane sat smugly, a half-smile full of arrogance. He was certain that with his famous lawyer, he would win. But Kate was not alone. The images of Casper and the stories of his resilience had touched the hearts of many. The courtroom was packed that day, not just with Kate's friends and colleagues, but also with supporters from all around. "Your Honor," Lester's lawyer began, "my client is the legal owner of this dog. Any action by Ms. Summers to keep the dog is a violation of the law. This is a matter of ownership, not emotions." Kate felt a surge of anger, but she held it back, staying calm. The cold words seemed to dismiss all the pain Casper had endured. When it was Kate's turn, her lawyer stood up and presented the evidence that she and her team had spent many days preparing. The photos of Casper's injuries, the detailed medical report from Dr. Elena Rhodes, and most importantly, the video clip showing Casper helping an autistic boy in the therapy garden were played before the entire courtroom. The room fell silent as they watched the scene. A dog who had been brutally tortured, now gently resting his head on the hand of a boy, bringing a smile that no one could deny was genuine. Casper is not an object, Kate's lawyer concluded. He is a living being, and what my client has done is give him what every creature deserves: love and protection. Lester jumped to his feet, his voice full of anger. It's just a dog. You're all making a fuss over nothing. I paid for it, and it belongs to me. Kate could stay silent no longer. She stood up and looked him straight in the eye. Yes, Lester, you can call him a dog, but you can't understand what he truly is. He is proof of survival, of hope, and he doesn't belong to anyone, especially not to someone who has hurt him like this. He sneered, but for the first time, confusion was clear in his eyes. After hours of debate, the judge finally rendered a verdict. After reviewing all the evidence and testimony, I conclude that this dog has been severely mistreated under Mr. Lester Crane's ownership. Therefore, the custody of the dog is awarded to Ms. Kate Summers and the Havens Light Center. Additionally, Mr. Lester will be held legally accountable for the animal cruelty. The courtroom erupted in applause. Kate felt as if her legs were weightless, as if all the burdens of the past weeks had been lifted off her shoulders. Elena hugged her tightly, and Marcus grinned widely. But above all, the look in Casper's eyes, full of peace and gratitude, made Kate realize she had done the right thing. Back at the center, everyone threw a small celebration. Casper was no longer the shy, fearful dog he once was. He walked among his friends, receiving pats and congratulations. That evening, when everyone had gone home, Kate sat in the therapy garden beside Casper. She gently stroked his head, her voice trembling as she spoke. We won, Casper, but not just because of me or you. It's for all the creatures out there, those lives waiting for a chance to be loved. Casper gently wagged his tail, his head resting on Kate's lap, as if to say he understood. In the dim light of the night, Kate felt a peace she hadn't known in months. The storm had passed, and now it was time for them to begin a new chapter. A chapter with no fear, only love, patience, and hope. Casper was not just a dog that had been saved. He had become a guiding light, not only for Kate, but for the world around them. And in that moment, Kate knew that this battle, all the efforts and all the tears had been worth it. 1 month after the victory in court, Casper became the heart and soul of the Havens Light Rescue Center. His story continued to spread, not only within the local community, but also to places Kate had never imagined. The media reported, social media posts shared his story with millions of likes and comments. But for Kate, the most important thing was Casper's new life, no longer afraid, no longer chained. That morning, Kate was busy in her office when Marcus knocked on the door, his face lit up with joy. Kate, you should come outside right now. Casper is doing something you'll want to see. Kate walked out to the therapy garden, where a group of children were playing. Among the children, Casper stood patiently, lowering his head so a little girl could gently pet his soft fur. The girl, Mia, was a special case. After an accident that caused her to lose the ability to speak, Mia had lived in isolation in her own world, refusing to communicate with anyone, until today. Mom, what's the name of this dog? Mia asked softly, her voice trembling but clear, causing both her mother and the staff to stand stunned. Kate stood frozen, tears welling up as she watched the scene. His name is Casper, Kate replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Mia smiled, a smile full of light. She wrapped her arms around Casper's neck, as if thanking him for helping her find her voice again. That evening, Kate sat in the therapy garden, with Casper lying beside her, his head resting on her lap as usual. She stroked his soft white fur, her gaze fixed on the starry sky. Do you see that, Casper? You didn't just save yourself. You saved Mia and so many others. You are proof that even the deepest pain can be transformed into a force for healing. Casper wagged his tail gently, his eyes full of peace. For Kate, that small gesture felt like a thank you, not just for saving him, but for believing in him when the whole world seemed to turn its back. In the following weeks, Kate received a special call from an international animal protection organization. They wanted to partner with Havens Light to create a program called Casper's Legacy, to train abused dogs to become therapy dogs for people in difficult situations. Kate, we believe Casper's story can change the lives of many people, the organization's representative said over the phone. He's not just a dog, he's a symbol of hope. Kate didn't need to think long. I agree, but this program is not just to honor Casper. It's to remind people that every living being, no matter how small or broken, deserves love and respect. The program was quickly launched, and Kate and her team worked tirelessly to make the idea a reality. Meanwhile, Casper continued his therapy work at the center and children's hospitals. He became the companion of sick children, patients struggling with loneliness, and other dogs on their journey to reclaim their lives. One day, during a hospital visit, Casper suddenly pulled Kate toward a secluded room. He stood at the door, looking up at her as if to say, "Come in." Kate opened the door and saw an elderly woman sitting quietly on the bed, her face filled with sorrow. She had lost her son in an accident and had refused to communicate with anyone. Casper slowly walked into the room, gently placing his head on her lap. The woman startled but didn't push him away. She looked down at the dog, her gaze shifting from surprise to emotion. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and for the first time in months, she spoke, "Thank you." Kate stood at the door, her heart heavy. Every time Casper did something miraculous like this, she realized more and more that he wasn't just a dog. He was a miracle. That night, Kate sat in her office, finishing the first piece of writing for the Casper's Legacy program. She opened her laptop, looked at the screen, and typed the first few lines. Casper is not just a rescued dog. He is proof that, even when life pushes you to the deepest depths, love and patience can bring you back to the light. He has taught us that every life has value, and sometimes the wounds are the bridges that help us understand each other better. She paused, looking out the window, where Casper was curled up under the moonlight, his eyes half closed in perfect peace. "Thank you, Casper," she whispered, "for teaching me and the world how to turn pain into love." On a chilly autumn morning, the Haven's Light Rescue Center was busier than usual. The cheerful footsteps of volunteers mixed with the joyful barking of dogs, echoing throughout the therapy garden. Today marked the official launch of the Casper's Legacy program, a project Kate and her team had been nurturing for a long time. Casper, the central figure of the ceremony, still carried a calm but dignified demeanor. His soft white fur reflected the sunlight, as if he embodied the very light of the program. The ceremony began with Kate's speech. Standing before a crowd of volunteers, supporters, and families who had been helped by Casper, she felt her heart race. But when she looked down and saw Casper sitting right next to her, his bright eyes seemed to say, "You can do it," she felt more confident. "Thank you all for being here today," Kate began, her voice clear, resonant, and filled with emotion. The Casper's Legacy program is not just the story of a dog. It's a story of hope, of recovery, and of love. Every creature, no matter how small or broken, has the ability to heal, not just for themselves, but for those around them. Kate paused, her throat tightening as memories of the first day she met Casper flooded her. She continued, her voice slightly trembling but resolute. "I still remember Casper's eyes when I found him. They were the eyes of a soul almost lost to the world. But today, those very eyes are an inspiration to us, to hundreds of other dogs, and to all those in need of comfort and healing." After the speech, the main program began. A small group of rescued dogs, now part of the therapy program, was led into the garden. Among them, a small dog named Sunny particularly caught attention. Sunny had been abandoned in a state of exhaustion, but thanks to Casper's support, he had become a lively and friendly dog. Casper gently approached Sunny, lowering his head as if to encourage him. Sunny wagged his tail slightly, his eyes bright, as if saying, "I'm ready." A little girl named Lily, who was participating in the therapy program, stepped closer to Sunny, her hand trembling but her eyes full of curiosity. Sunny lifted his head to look at her, then gently touched his nose to her hand. Lily laughed, her clear laughter breaking the silence of the morning. After the ceremony, Kate sat under the familiar lavender tree, gently flipping through the notebook chronicling Casper's journey. Beside her, Casper lay curled up, his eyes half closed, yet his ears still attentive to every sound around them. "You know, Casper," Kate whispered, "everything we've achieved today started with you. I never thought that the first time I met you, I would learn so much from a dog. But you've taught me that sometimes silence holds more power than 1,000 words. You've shown me that no matter how much pain we endure, we can still choose to love." Casper gently lifted his head, his eyes looking at Kate with affection, as if to say that he understood. In that moment, Kate felt as though time had stopped. It wasn't just a moment of connection, but a confirmation that this journey was truly worthwhile. In the evening, after everyone had gone home, Kate took some time to walk around the center. She stopped in front of the newly constructed therapy area, a peaceful garden where dogs like Casper and Sunny could help those in need of healing. She saw Lily sitting on a bench, reading a book, with Sunny lying beside her, and a young couple leading a newly rescued dog shyly entering the garden. It all started with one dog, Kate told herself, her heart swelling with pride. Back in her office, Kate opened her laptop and typed the first line for the program's new post. "Every wound is a story. Every story is an opportunity to heal. And every healing is a legacy." Casper taught us this, not through words, but through the way he lived, courageous, gentle, and full of love. That night, as Kate prepared to sleep, she sat beside Casper, stroking his soft fur. "You know, Casper, we've come a long way, and there's so much more ahead. But I know, with you here, anything is possible." Casper gently wagged his tail, his bright eyes glowing in the soft light. For Kate, it wasn't just a simple gesture. It was a promise that they would continue this journey, together, step by step, bringing light and hope to the world. One winter morning, the sky was full of clouds, but the air was fresh and peaceful. Kate stood on the small balcony of the center, looking out at the therapeutic garden. Casper was walking a new dog, a blind dog named Echo. Echo walked slowly, clearly still scared, but with Casper by his side, he gradually relaxed and felt safe. The sight made Kate smile. This was the reason she started everything, not just to save a life, but to create a chain of miracles. In the past months, the Casper Legacy program had achieved many successes. Many dogs who had been abused had now become wonderful therapy companions for children, the elderly, and those suffering from psychological trauma. But Kate knew that this journey had just begun. She had received a special invitation from an international organization that wanted to expand Casper's model globally. That meant Haven's light could grow even further, but it also required Kate to make an important decision. One evening, in her quiet room, Kate wrote a letter to herself, trying to organize her thoughts. "We've come so far, but there's still so much ahead. I can continue focusing on the Haven's Light Center, ensuring it remains a safe haven for creatures in need of healing. But if I choose to expand the program globally, I might face many challenges: financial, time constraints, and the possibility of not being close to the dogs I love every day." Casper taught me that every choice matters, but there's never just one path. I wonder, which path will bring the most light to this world? And am I strong enough to walk that path? The next morning, as Kate was thinking over a hot cup of coffee, Casper came over and sat next to her, his eyes seeming to ask, "What are you worried about?" Kate looked at him, and a slow smile appeared. "You're right, Casper. Our choices are always difficult. But no matter what we choose, we must remember, love and compassion will always be our guiding compass." An open ending and a question for the audience. Kate is facing two choices. Continue focusing on the Haven's Light Center, making it an absolute place of recovery where every creature is loved and healed. Expand the Casper Legacy program globally, bringing his story to millions of people and thousands of other creatures, but facing greater challenges. The question for you, the audience of this story, is, if you were Kate, which path would you choose? What would create the greatest impact, not just for lives like Casper's, but for all of us? Casper's story is not only a moving tale of survival, but also a lesson in compassion and the power of healing. In today's world, We often face tough situations, trauma, or even despair. But like Casper, each of us has the ability to turn our pain into strength and share that with others. At the same time, the story also reminds us of our responsibility to the vulnerable creatures around us. Millions of animals are abused or abandoned every year, but even the smallest action, saving a life, supporting a center, or even just spreading this story, can make a difference. As Kate watched Casper curl up and sleep peacefully under the last rays of the day's sunlight, she knew that every decision would always begin with love. And she wondered, are we ready to become the light for those in need of healing? So, what do you think? Let Casper's story inspire you to take positive action today.